what's your concluding and popular opinion? Close this box.
That children don't need perfect parents. They need regulated parents. We be okay with making mistakes.
It's the politics of motherhood.
Welcome to the politics of motherhood.
Because everyone has an opinion about motherhood.
I'm Lynette.
And I'm Washuka.
And Washuka, how are you doing this week?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, all good. Yeah.
How was the day? How's the day started?
There was a lot of traffic coming to the studio.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I almost cancelled today. I was like, what is all this?
What?
It was like chaos.
We would have potentially missed Luca's last recording session with us.
Yeah.
How annoying would that have been?
And how have you been?
Well, I've been well.
This morning?
I've been well. This morning went well. It's hot, which is, I love heat, but then sometimes it's like piercing hot, which is too hot. But all good.
Yeah.
All good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what are your big wins this week?
Let's start with you.
Me. There's so many wins. I think for me, the biggest one is I am learning to say no. I am usually a possibilities person. I am the let's get it done. We can do hard things. But I have also learned that does drain me in a way that I never accepted before. So I am the go, get things done, get things moving. There's an obstacle, it's not the end, just keep it moving. But I have learned you can actually say no, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
So I've been saying no a lot more. And some of the no's are an absolute no, cannot be done, will not be done, not by me, no thanks. And some of them have been not right now. Okay. And it's been liberating. It's given me a kind of freedom I never thought possible. So I'm happy. I'm happy with my saying no. It's my year of no. You know, Shonda Rhimes wrote a book, My Year of Yes. It's my year of no.
No. Okay,
what about you?
My eldest son, who's 2 years, is now asking for me to read him books.
Oh, that is so cute.
Imagine.
I know what I'm going to get him. Because I'm a big bookie. So yeah.
Please bring me a Swahili book, at least.
Okay,
you can buy like the English
like
one, then
the deep end, but
a
it's
bonus Swahili
I will
one.
get him a Swahili book.
Yeah, so he just comes like, Mama, let's read this. He has a book on buffalo. He's like, buffalo. Okay, today let's read Nuru. Nuru is another book, but it's in English. So it's just amazing to see how much he's grown and how much he's growing.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm grateful.
Good. So what are we talking about today?
No child. Yes,
to
child,
be
no child.
or not to be.
Yeah. Truly.
Oh, actually it is.
Yeah. To be or not to be. Yeah, literally. Yeah, it is.
So the child or no child, child-free movement, childless movement. I don't know if the childless one is a movement, but child-free is, a movement that is really catching on. Or, women deciding they do not have, not just women actually, women and men deciding that they do not want to be parents. What do you think about that?
First of all, I think it's important to clarify that we're talking about saying no to children as a choice.
As a choice, yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's
not
why I say like childlessness is not always like not an option.
Yeah, not because you can't because of fertility issues.
Yes.
I'm like to each their own, really. I have a very unpopular opinion. I don't think everyone...
Go for it.
I don't think everyone is supposed to be a parent or should be a parent.
Why not?
Because there's some people who or maybe I'm just passing judgment at this point in time, but I feel like sometimes you may bring a child and then you don't give that child the time, like you don't nurture the child, and it becomes a whole cycle of a hurt child, and then the hurt child hurts another person. Hurt people.
Yes.
Yeah, so... Yeah, I genuinely don't think everyone was meant to be a parent. Yeah, just because of the kind of damage that some people can inflict on their kids.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting.
What do you think?
Specifically, I'll start with your last point. I have met many people who do not want to have children by choice. They just like no. And sometimes I investigate to be like, why? Just out of the curiosity and not because of my activism, as I said in the last episode of, we need to have more children in the world. And you will find that some of them have done the work to recognize that they are hurt by their parents, by their environment, by their relatives, enough that they are not ready to want to bring in a child, because they're like, if I have a child, then I might have that child, because the structure that I have, that I grew up in, I don't think I want to be that kind of a parent. And sometimes it's fear, and sometimes for sure they're not ready. So it's quite interesting, to know people, especially who've done the work, to know. And interestingly, the people that have said they do not want to have children tend to be, in one way or another, like eldest daughters. So they could be number 2 or 3 or even 4 in their birth order, but then they were the oldest, the first girl. Yeah. And in most cases, it was like, I was deputy parent. I was expected to parent my siblings. I was expected to be deputy mom. Yeah. And I have seen enough. I have done enough of that work. I don't think I want to get involved. But my opinion is pretty much like yours, which is that not everyone, not necessarily can, but should be a parent. Not necessarily just a mom.
Yeah.
But not everyone should be a parent, because the people who do things. And interestingly, like, becoming a mom softened my heart extremely towards children. And I cannot stand to see children getting hurt. I cannot stand to see a child cry. Like, I'm there being like, what can we do to stop this child from crying, because they're hurting. And you see, like, there's a day we were at the coast and we went to one of like those beachside parties, and there was this like maybe 7-year-old who came with their mom, and it was like 2 a.m. Yeah, those days when I could party till 2 a.m. And they were up dancing on stage with the singers. And I remember I actually cried. And at that point, I asked my husband that we leave, because I was like, this is so wrong in so many ways. And in that moment, of course, I understood it's, at the coast, unfortunately, there's lots of moms who trade their kids for sex and do all that. But it hurt me so much. And this was maybe like 3 years ago. And I've never forgotten that moment and how I felt. And for me, in that case, I'm like, this would have been a better case of do not have a child as much as possible, because the life that this child is now introduced to and how things, will end up is just for the worst. So I believe that not everyone should be a parent.
Yeah.
But what is there something about maybe the movement that you find, annoying is not the right word, but especially, just like other movements, there's feminism and all that you look at and you're like, that was unnecessary?
I think when now it becomes that my lifestyle is better than your lifestyle. Like, my lifestyle of being
that
child-free is better than your lifestyle of having kids. Can we just coexist? Like,
I slept till 9 a.m. because guess what? I don't have kids.
No, I mean, like, yes, we both chose the life that we have, and they both can exist. Like, none is better than the other.
Yeah.
Like, we are fine. We are fine. Like, let's respect each other's decision and be okay with what the other person has chosen.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a big one. And there's a way that communication is made, which is, I'm better than you. My life is better than yours. Yeah. Look at your very poor choices. And there's almost, I once had a discussion with someone. In the last episode, we talked about money, actually. And we had a conversation, and this person said, if I cannot afford to take my kids to Turi, I will not have children. And there was a lot of like almost that, for anyone who doesn't know, Turi is this like super expensive private school.
Yeah.
And there was almost kind of that judgment that is passed down to like, how can you have children if you don't have the most expensive private school money to take them to that school?
But that's not the only school that your child
Exactly.
can go to.
And there's no guarantee that, if a child goes to that school or any other school for that matter, that they would,
turn out to be the greatest.
And sometimes, this things like those that I say, and you're like, okay, that's interesting. That's really interesting. I know that you've talked a lot about like children not being accidents and planning for children. Did you plan, not necessarily for children, but for the age at which you would have children?
The age? Wow. No. The age of starting to have kids? No, I didn't plan for it. I think for me, my determinant of having kids was when I get married.
Okay.
Yeah, because I also wanted to bring up my children in a family setup that is kind of stable. Yeah. So that was my determinant. That was my determinant. I didn't have a certain age that by this age I need to have a child. No. But right now I'm like, by this age I need to finish having children.
Yeah.
Right now I'm like, there's kind of like a deadline on when I want to continue. I do not, as past a certain age I don't want to be having kids.
Was there ever a moment you were like, I'm on the fence on whether to be or not to be a mom? Never. I've always wanted to be a mom. I love kids so much, man. And I thought before I had my firstborn, I thought it was just I loved my own children, but I realized I also love other people's children. Like I just very nurturing around kids. Like I want to take care of them, find out if they're okay. So I've always wanted to be a mom. I've never thought of a life where I'm not a parent. And I always tell my husband, you know how each couple has their own cross to carry, and we always say like, thank God our cross to carry was not a fertility issue, because it would kill both of us to not have kids. Okay.
Yeah, it would kill both of us to not have kids. So I have never seen an alternative to the life that I'm currently living of no child. How about you?
Yeah, I think I'm the same in the sense that I did not think about the age. And honestly, for me, I wasn't very pressed on I have to get married first. But for me, it was that I knew I wanted to have children, And it's interesting when you're young, it's like, you have to get married before you have children. Then you get to an age you're like, I just want children. And then you get to an age where like, I'm just going to adopt a child, you know, like if I'm not. So there are people, of course, who, no matter what, they're going to have children.
Yeah.
Whether, by birth or by adoption and stuff. And then there are people who unfortunately will not, be able to have children. And in terms of like the cross to carry, it's also unfortunate that there are people who really, really want children and then cannot have, the children because of multiple, reasons. But it's quite interesting. When I had my first child, I thought I only liked my child.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't care for other people's. Like, I have many nephews and nieces and I love them. But I was like, I did not think it was possible to love, And when my first child came, I was like too into her. And I was like, this is the child that matters.
Yeah.
And then over time, I'm like, I will pick your friends over you. There are moments you're like, no, So it's quite interesting as well, just looking at that evolution of you love your child deeply and then realizing that you just love children.
Generally,
and you care about children.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting. But in terms of that decision to not have children, do you know anyone who's decided to not have children and then change their mind at a point?
No. I don't know anyone. In fact, I know like maybe two people don't have children around my circle. And funny enough, I was actually talking to one of them just quite recently, and she's like, "Babies are too much work. I'm just a girl." Yeah. So the people that I know who didn't want to have kids till date have not had kids at all. Well, the only other one person that I know. Yeah. They don't have kids until date. But yeah, no. And how about you? Do they give do you have such friends? Do they give a reason as to why they don't want to have children, don't have be mothers?
Yeah, I have fathers. A few of such friends who do not have kids and do not want to be mothers. And two of them have recently changed their minds.
Oh.
And this is like into the 40s now. Folks are like, well. And interestingly, in one case, it's a matter of the influence of, you've seen that, maybe for a long time you've held this decision, and then you meet people with children, and then you're like, maybe it's not that hard. Or maybe it's not that expensive. Because sometimes it's like, it's very hard to be a mom, or it's very expensive to have children, or I must have a partner before I have a child. Like, I do want a child, but I must have a partner. And then you delay that decision for so long, and then the partner doesn't come along, and then it's like, okay, what do I do? And then in the second case, it's a case of wrong partner, which is you get with this person and they're like, I don't want to have children. Like, yeah, of course, I also don't want to have children. And then after the separation, she got with someone else, and it was like, I want to have children. Like, cool, let's have children. Like, girl, that's a bit of a jump, But for me, like I mentioned, these two cases, not necessarily to influence anyone, but to say there are situations where people don't want to have children because the situation is not right. And in that moment, it feels like, no, I never want to have children, to realizing, looking backwards, that situation I was in was not right for me to have a child. To now, like, the only conversation we can have is when I have my child, when I have my child. And this is the plan for the child. And I was like, okay, interesting. And in fact, one friend, I was like, come over and play with the kids, start doing practice. So you get to know how it is. And sometimes it's like very chaotic and like, are you doing okay? Are you, you know how kids can be extra around external people and stuff. But it's quite interesting. But for me, it just still goes back to that decision is also very personal. Like, people, and sometimes like people have experienced a lot of trauma in their lives, and they're like, this is just not for me. And some people are like, I love my whiskey way too much to want to like go a Friday without having a nice cocktail because I have to breastfeed a child, for example. Which also, can leave room for judgment. You're like, so you're picking, this over that and
it's a bit
stuff.
selfish.
And also I know like one of the judgments, especially for people with children, is so you're gonna grow. So who's gonna take care of you in your old age?
Yeah.
And that conversation is just very interesting too.
And also like your legacy dying. Yeah.
Do you think those things are important though? For a human being, generally?
I would say it's personal. It's personal. I see why it would be important for someone and others not.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Yeah, I really don't have a hard and fast rule on that at all. I don't. You?
I do think it's a risk.
Okay.
I do think it's a risk. Again, as we said, not
a risk in what sense?
A risk in the sense that I know that you see a lot of people saying, but I have my nephews and my nieces, to take care of you. And because you've seen as well what happens, for instance, in the West, where,
they go to care homes.
Yeah, people end up in care homes. times.
But is it the worst thing?
It's not the worst thing, but it's not the best situation. And again, there are people with children who end up in care homes.
Yeah.
So it's not to say that if you do not have children, you're going to end up in a care home. And someone can argue that I am building my wealth. All that school fees you're paying is in an MMF somewhere. And it's making me, money to take care of me when I'm older. I think for me, it's the lack of companionship more than anything. And it's also a hit and miss. Like, it's 50-50. There's no guarantee that by having children, you're going to have people who call you and are happy to hear your voice. Just this morning, I read there's a guy who burnt his parents' house because the mom denied him 100 shillings. There's craziness that can also happen with children. You can have children and they become your dependents for the rest of their lives. There's also like misses that can come with having children. You've heard of this popular case of a judge who died, and then the parents are fighting to get his inheritance, and the siblings are fighting for the parents. There's a lot that can happen with having chthen.
That's true.
That there's no guarantee that it's going to be a successful venture.
Better life.
Exactly, a better life. But then also there is but what if it works out and you did not have, kids? And how's that life at the end? There are people who regret it, and there are people who say it's still the best thing I did, because the way my life is structured, I don't think children would have survived in it. But it's also interesting that people who've had children, when you ask them what's their biggest regret, they would say not having more children.
Yeah.
Which is also quite interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think do you have a sweet number? Like, you say there's a cutoff for when you will want to stop having children.
Yeah.
Do you have by that number, I should have had this number of children?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So I want to have 4 kids.
Okay.
But if more to come, it's fine. But yeah, 4 is my sweet number. 4 is my sweet number. By 37, because
by 37,
ain't no way I want to be.
You literally have 3 years?
No, I have 5.
Oh yeah, you have 5 years to have 2 more children.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
look at this competition coming from you.
No, not anytime soon. Hey, my body needs to have a rest. Yo. As in, I'm actually really tired of pregnancy.
You're tired of being pregnant.
Yeah. It's such a long venture. Anyway, yeah, for me it's 4 kids by that age. But if more come, I'm open to life. I'm kind of that open to life kind of person. Yeah. And you?
Initially I wanted 4 kids. Well, there was a point where I wanted 8.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah, there was a point where I wanted 8 children, like my mother, and life moves on. And then when I got into my 30s, I was like, okay, maybe 4. Maybe 4 is a sweet spot. With my last pregnancy, at a point I was like, which was my 3rd, I was like, I think I'm out. I'm done. This is it.
Yeah. I remember when you first met, you said like, this is gonna be my last one.
Yeah. And now that, that did not happen, and I'm in my healing journey, I have switched back to actually wanting 4 kids.
Oh, yay!
Yeah. So interesting. Like for me, like at the 3rd pregnancy, I said, I do not want to, so I'm going to be 38 this year. And I had said, I do not want to be 40 and pregnant.
It's looking like it's going to be,
because I had not met people who had kids in their 40s. And I think as the universe works, during this period since losing the baby in September to now, I have met so many people who are like, someone was like, I have 5 kids. I had the last 2 when I was in my 40s. Or, I had 3 kids, and when I was 45, I thought I had a burst pancreas. Turns out I was pregnant. You're like, wait, what? It's like, yeah. So I've met so many people who've had, maybe it was the universe trying to show me that this is actually possible.
Yeah.
Like you're closing yourself to these possibilities. So now I'm actually fully like, I'm just going to have, like 4 is actually now my minimum.
Yeah.
And I'm open to, I will have kids until I can't have kids anymore.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
wow.
That's literally my new, like, yeah, I'm just gonna have kids. I don't even now have a number. I hope I have a minimum of 4 children, but I'm just gonna have kids.
Eish.
That's my new. I was talking to my dad in December, and we had this long, like 1-hour conversation, and we were talking about like our regrets and our achievements and all that, like a very deep conversation. And he asked me like how I would evaluate my life in terms of like the positives and the negatives. And I told him like the negative thing is I haven't had the number of children I wanted to have. And I don't think I'm going to be able to have that number. And he said, why not? Like, just keep trying and just have the kids that you want to have.
Yeah.
Easy for him to say. I'm his last born. So it's like, yeah, but yeah, so that has also encouraged me in the sense that, and I must, put a disclaimer to that. As I've mentioned, I'm a last born and I know I have the support system to be able to, take care of as many kids as I probably want to have if my body can do it. So, it's interesting as well to, when you do family planning, to say I want 2 because I can only afford 2, to maybe what we discussed about money in our last episode, to saying this is how we've structured our lives in a way that we can afford to say I'll have as many kids as I can. So yeah, that's my whole outlook towards children.
Oh, that is a drastic change.
Yeah, right?
Wow. And very bold.
Wow.
I'm supporting you.
So if you see me out there 48 and pregnant, please understand my life. Please understand my ambitions and the life that I have chosen.
Oh my gosh. Let me ask, would you be okay if your kids decided that they're not going to have kids? For one reason, or maybe they've, personal choice, or the way of life that they decided to take, maybe, religious life. They decided they're not going to have kids, they're going to focus on church, God, taking care of, shepherding God's people kind of thing. Would you be okay with that?
I'd be okay with it because that is their decision to make.
Yeah.
I will do as much as I can in a positive way to influence them to want to have kids. But if whatever I do, they look at it and they say, no. Because that's also how some of the decisions around being child-free are made. I looked at how my parents parented us and how terrible they were. Or I looked at how my mom lost herself in doing this parenting thing. And I don't think I want to do that for another human. So the best I can do is really to try and influence positively.
I have a question. You see, when people say it's because of the trauma that they have from how they've been raised and they don't have kids, do you think it's a responsible thing that someone is doing? Like, they don't want to pass on that trauma to a generation, to other people?
Yeah, I think so. It's like, this is a political thing, politics of motherhood, but there are people who know for sure they have, for instance, a genetic issue that you 100% will pass on to your child, and then you go on to have the child, like maybe a severe case of epilepsy or a severe case of disability or something like that. There are people who are going to say, I do not want to have a child because I might pass this gene on to them, and I don't think I want to. Maybe I saw my brother suffering. I saw how my mother was lost in that. I do not want to see another human being suffering, and I do not want to put myself in the position of maybe what my mother went through in that case, to take care of, this child. And then there are people who say, I don't care if I pass this on to them. I have that urge to want to have my own child. And even if that means I have to take care of them for the rest of their lives, that is something that I'm willing to do. Because I have had to ask myself that question. In that moment of like, just after losing the baby and, you're told it might have been like a genetic issue, and if they had survived, probably this might have happened. I mean, physically, nothing was found that was wrong. But then it's like, oh, maybe chromosomal issues and na. And then I had to ask myself, if for sure, maybe this child might have ended up with a severe genetic issue that physically is not seen, but maybe is it anatomically might have happened, would I have been okay with that decision? Or how, after an ultrasound, a doctor tells you this child has this issue, I advise that you terminate versus are you going to keep the child? How do you make that decision? For me, it was straightforward. For me, I said, no matter what it was with this child, I was 100% willing to take care of that child. Because also there's a thing that motherhood, means to me in that sense. And this is not to say that there was anything wrong with the child, but as an example, but those are the conversations I had to, to have with myself. So for me, I do think that it's a responsible thing, because there's also the consideration of someone else's quality of life. And sometimes, like with the background of maybe an abusive household and the fear of, ending up in an abusive household, there's also that fear of what's the quality of life of my child if I end up in an abusive household, because I know the quality of life I had as a child was not so good because of the household that I grew up in. So I wouldn't label it responsible or irresponsible, but I think for me, those are very valid reasons for people to think about when deciding whether they want to have a child or not to have a child. What about you? Even Luca just woke up. It's like, that's like.
I think it is responsible.
Okay.
Because a lot of how you parent is influenced by how you grew up, but not to. You can still do work on yourself. That's the thing. You can still do work on yourself. If it's something that you desire, you can still work on yourself and do better than what you grew up in. But there's a side of me that's like, but who said you're gonna turn out the same? You're gonna do the same thing. Like, why don't you just give it a chance?
Yeah, there's an unknown, fear of the unknown and facing the unknown. Yeah.
But if it was like your case, you're saying about a disability, and then you find out when you're on a 20-week scan, just keep the baby. Honestly, keep it. So I don't know. Oh, that's a tough question. Yeah, that's a very tough question.
It's quite interesting because it's difficult to know. It's also very difficult to know, like, how do I actually approach this? But also I think it helps when you also have a good support system around you to be able to say, I'm able to do this because, and a good support system is both people and the money to be able to do that. If you're going to raise a child with disabilities, schools for the disabled are not the facilities that you need. I know of a case of someone who really wanted a child, and I think this still is their only child. And that kid has been on a vent for maybe 16 years. So she had to set up like an HDU level facility in her house for 16 years. I think the kid was born at 5 months And, so lots of developmental challenges and stuff. So sometimes it's also, asking yourself in that sense. But as Sauti So said, mtoto anakuja na sahani yake. So sometimes there's that. But then you also don't know if the provision is going to be there, because there's lots of families where the provision is not there. But for me, sometimes when people say, oh, but children are really expensive, children are this and that, I say there's a family in Kibera with 8 children sleeping in a single room. It's not the most ideal situation, but people are going to do what they want to do. They're going to figure out how to, meet their heart's desires one way or another, by accident or not. Sometimes we see people, like, how did the mad woman have 4 children? How did that happen? So people are going to do and get what I think they want to do and what they want to get. But I have a question for you. In terms of people's decisions to not want to have kids, there are also others who think they can make that decision for them to not want to have. Think about eugenics. Think about, there's all the conspiracy around food and health systems that are, targeted towards poor families to render women infertile so that they don't have children. You've heard of health cases where, big funders, force women to take pills. You're told it's an experimental drug, but it's what's the word? I forget what the word is. It's a pill to just make them infertile.
Control population.
Yeah, to control the populations and stuff. What do you think about those situations?
I have a big problem with that. Like, what made you think that you have so much power and so much authority over how the world works, over how people do things? Honestly, I have a problem with that. And it would really hurt to know that what I ate or what I consumed or, whatever way, whether it's my mouth, skin, whatever, is the reason why I'm struggling with fertility. It would really hurt. Like, who gave you that right to make that choice for me? Yeah, so I have a problem with such approaches. Like, just let people do what they want. Like, especially when it comes to kids, like, who are you? You're not the giver and end of life. Leave that to God, for sure.
I think also, like, just the other day I was thinking about this whole I think in the 90s it was very popular, family planning, and Africans need to family plan and do all this and stuff.
That's because when you have more people, you'll take over the world.
The ideal is you should have 2 children. Then textbooks, started coming out with the nuclear family. It's mom, dad,
and 2 kids,
and 2 kids. Father, son, and daughter. And that kind of just became the education and the educating. And this whole, and I think it is propaganda around, like, we do not have enough food to feed our population. We do not have enough of this to feed our. I'm like,
we have a lot.
Too much, in fact.
Where is their wastage?
Too politicized. We have times when farmers are pouring milk because they can't sell it. Where you go to markets and tomatoes are rotting because there's no,
And that's where there's that solution, the cold storage solution.
Yes.
Because of that.
Exactly.
There's excess.
Exactly.
That some needs to be frozen.
So it's quite, while I would say personally, while I respect people's decisions on whether to have or not to have children, it's also quite amusing, I think, to realize how much propaganda there is around reducing, especially the African population. When you read the history of a lot of these things in terms of, like, we are not able to keep up with the needs of healthcare and of all of these things. And then you look at how much money is wasted, at especially government level, and how that could have gone towards. Like, we had a president who made education free for everyone. And now we are in a situation where people cannot afford to take their kids, and people are having fewer children. But and more money is being collected. So I think there's just a lot. There's just a lot of politics around it. And then finally, for me, it is seeing how, I think it was in California, where there were more households with dogs than there were with children. And now, like, dog insurance is going up.
And I'm sure the grooming facilities.
Of course. And these are for people who are like, children are too expensive. And then when you look at what expensive is in the West versus what expensive is locally, and kind of how those two environments are being mixed up when their conditions are just not the same, is quite interesting for me. And now we're starting to see a lot more, especially in Nairobi, of like, I would rather have a dog than have kids. And I will have like 6 dogs. And there's like grooming, there's boarding facilities when you're traveling, or there's vet services, there's, pet insurance, there's dog food. Have you seen how much dog food is?
No, but I hear it's expensive.
It's very expensive. So there are things like those that then like have me questioning the politics of, the child-free movement and pretty much the politics of reducing the African population.
Because, there's also that conversation of labor. And that's why, like, places like Europe are having a crisis. The population is an aging population.
Yes.
They've been having this child-free
movement
for longer. Yeah, for longer.
Yeah.
And now there's actually no people to do the work.
Yeah.
And that's why there are now so many immigrants.
And that's why there's the rise of the robots.
Yeah. So I think, it's definitely propaganda, as you're putting it.
Yeah.
And Africa is very fertile. Like, I was very shocked the other day to see how fertile Sudan is. Like, I've always seen Sudan as a very dry country.
Yeah.
Like
a desert.
A desert. Like, there is nothing that can survive in that place. To see lush green, tracts of land, I was surprised.
I mean, someone said, for instance, Israel, that plants, that grows a lot of food, is supposed to be a desert.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then the best agri-technologists are from Israel.
Yeah.
I've mentioned in the past that I have a small piece of land that is our farm. I have never used fertilizer in that farm, and things just grow. Like, you leave it for 2 weeks and weeds are up to your knees.
Wow.
And, you think about things like those and kind of the politics and propaganda around, we're not able to feed ourselves, we're not able to do all these things. And kind of the commercialization of everything. Like, everything must come from the supermarket and everything must be traded before you have access to it. It's quite interesting. It's quite interesting. And unfortunately, when you look at the child-free movement, a lot of it feeds into that. You're not going to be able to afford education. You're not going to be able to afford healthcare. You're not going to be able to afford food. But you should be able to afford healthcare for your pets, and you should be able to afford food for your pets, and grooming for your pets, and doing all of that, and cremation services for your pets, because now we all live in apartments. So there are all those things that you look at and you're like, oh well. I guess my politics is that we need more human beings on the planet, and people need companionship.
Yep.
Of other human beings. So
I like how you clarify that, because companionship could also be from
I lived in the US for a bit, and I remember, like, I went there during the winter and I was so depressed And I remember my friend who also lived there, but in a different states. When they asked, like, are there pet clinics? Pet clinics? Maybe you should go get a dog. And I was like, your solution to me being depressed because of like this bad winter is I should go get a dog and not go to the pub and make some friends, or get a housemate, or it was just so interesting. But anyway, it is what it is. I guess
it is. Okay.
Yes. So Washuka, as we are closing, and I know that this particular episode has been maybe very unpopular.
Yeah.
What's your concluding and popular opinion? Like, close this box.
So my popular opinion is that children don't need perfect parents. They need regulated parents. Because, well, we're never perfect anyway. And I think it becomes very important for your kids to see you making mistakes. Because even then, when they make those mistakes, they'll be like, oh, mommy did this and she rose above it. So I can also rise above this. So it becomes important that, we be okay with making mistakes. And just not seek perfection. Anyway, it will be a very tough goal to suppress.
That's interesting. And an example that I have, just to that exact point, is one time, I don't know if I talked about it on the podcast, but my kids asked me if I would cry if my mama died.
No, it was our personal conversation.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
And I told them, yes, of course, I'd be so crushed if my mom died. Like, I would cry, I would roll on the floor. And then they asked, how come we didn't see you crying when the baby died?
Yeah.
And because I was trying to be the perfect parent for them. Like, when I knew they were coming home, I'd, clean up and be straight up and stand up and, and present this environment. And for them, it was very confusing because they're like, how come your own child? Because at a point they were like, so if we died,
you
will
wouldn't cry?
Yeah. So, and maybe we'll talk about this in another episode, but showing emotion, showing some of the imperfections, but in a regulated way, as you said, is very important for children. Because then they also learn that there are challenges in life and you can overcome those challenges.
Exactly.
And there's a way that you react to different challenges.
Exactly. Yeah. Agreed. And what's yours?
Mine today is very short and sweet, that we are responsible for our own boundaries. As we started this episode,
year of no.
It's my year of no. And just realizing that unless you're a medical professional, saying no does not, always put anyone in danger. And especially if it's not putting anyone in danger, you can draw and create boundaries, and that is okay. And that we are responsible for our own boundaries. Sometimes I work in like high pressured environments for like, you need to deliver this by this time to this person. And sometimes when there's a delay and I reach out, I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, we're experiencing a delay. And people are like, no, it's okay, take your time. And you're like, oh, wow, okay. No one was dying and this person understood that. So just drawing boundaries, being able to say no and being able to, regulate your environment is totally up to you, and you should take that power. And that's it from us today.
Yes.
Until next, we're gonna miss you, Luca. Bye. Say bye to everyone. Till next time, our listeners. See you next time.
See you next time, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
It's the politics of motherhood.